My name is Kenneth B. Morris Jr., and I'm the great-great-great-grandson of Frederick and Anna Murray Douglass and co-founder president of Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives. We're a Rochester, New York-based nonprofit charity with a mission to build strong children and to end systems of exploitation and oppression. And I am very excited to be in Belfast this week to celebrate and commemorate the life and legacy of my great ancestor, Frederick Douglass. This is the fourth annual Douglass Week, and we are going to be following in the footsteps of Frederick Douglass and his time here, which was very important in his life. He described his time in Ireland as very transformative in his life, and he wrote back to William Lloyd Garrison, the white abolitionist, when he arrived, and he said that I'm not being judged by the color of my skin, and I'm being treated as a man. The reason that he was here, and if I could just back up a little bit, was he had escaped from slavery in 1838 at the age of 20. He would escape by boat and by train, and he would end up in New York City. He would write a letter back to my great-great-great-grandmother, Anna Murray. She would come and join him. They would get married and take on the name Frederick and Anna Johnson to make it harder for his enslaver to be able to track him down. And then with the suggestion of the conductors on the Underground Railroad, and the Underground Railroad was a network of people, places, and spaces working together to help freedom seekers get to their freedom after they would run away. It was suggested that they go to New Bedford, Massachusetts, because Frederick Douglass could likely find work there. He had acquired a skill as a ship caulker working on the docks in Baltimore. And so they would land in New Bedford, change their name to Frederick and Anna Douglass, begin to start their family. And I am proud of my ancestors for many reasons. But at this time in their very young lives, I think I'm most proud because while Frederick was still what we would have called a fugitive slave at the time, we call those people freedom seekers now, but he was a fugitive slave. He was not free, but he was in a free territory. He could have just started the family and just been happy and content with his new life. But as long as his brethren were still toiling away in chains, he was not satisfied. Frederick and Anna would attend an anti-slavery meeting on Nantucket Island. And they were just in the audience just to witness the activities. But when William Lloyd Garrison heard that Frederick Douglass was in the audience, he asked him just to stand up and tell your story. Tell the audience, Frederick, what it was like to be enslaved. And Frederick wrote in his first autobiography, the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. He said, I was so nervous that first time speaking in front of a white audience. But when he stood up, he had this natural gift for communication. He was eloquent. He was charismatic. He was theatrical and even funny in some of the descriptions and talking about the characters that he came into contact with while enslaved. And the Garrisonians understood that they had a star on their hands. So they asked Frederick to become a paid lecturer. And the reason I'm telling you this story, because it really leads up to why we are here in Belfast. And so Frederick, as a paid lecturer for the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society, would go from town to town, city to city, just telling his story. But he started to have a problem. And that problem was people started to doubt that he had ever been enslaved. They couldn't wrap their minds around what they thought a slave looked and sounded like and what they were hearing and seeing in this well-dressed, charismatic, well-spoken man. So in order to prove he was who he claimed to be, he wrote his first autobiography, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. And then he had another problem. It became a bestseller. And that's the last thing that you want, is the notoriety of a best-selling book if you're trying to hide from your enslaver, because it made him a household name, what we would call an A-list celebrity today. And so it was suggested that he flee to Europe for a couple of years as kind of a cooling off period. He could travel around England and Ireland and Scotland and raise money for the cause of abolition in the United States. He could sell Irish copies of his narrative. And he would do that, and then eventually land in Newcastle upon Tyne in England. And with the help of his abolitionist supporters, they raised enough money to purchase his freedom from his enslaver. And then he would return back to the United States, a free man. And by the way, it was 150 pounds back then in 1847, or $711, which is a lot of money today. But he would return back to the United States, the family would settle in Rochester, New York, where he would begin to publish the North Star newspaper, which became the leading abolitionist voice and really a mouthpiece for people of African descent that were enslaved. So we are here in Belfast to commemorate and celebrate the life of my great ancestor and the time that he spent here. There are activities during Douglas Week, the whole week, that will be in person, virtual events. There's cultural, musical, acting, there are history lessons, there everything that you can think of. So we hope that you will come out and join us this week. And I look forward to seeing you in person. And if you come, please come up to me and say hello.